doesn't actually show up anywhere in the browser, and so if you can type to your heart's content, you can even like do fun art with text if you wanted, and no one will ever see it unless they look through your code, but still. Now there's functions, and functions are a whole other set of things that variables can be assigned to and variables can be used in. Functions are reusable collections of statements. Now again, everything in JavaScript that can be declared is a statement. And so let's just say I have this function right here and it's called crap alternative, and then it prints out turd, because turd is an alternative for crap. That's right. Anyway, you can call this function as many times as you want. So if I wanted to just print out crap alternative multiple times, it would just print out turd a ton of times. And so let's do a more mature example, shall we? So let's just say I want to do function, and I'm going to print out the best hack ever, let's just say. And if you'll notice, I have the two parentheses there. I have the word function, the name of the function, two parentheses, and then curly braces. Now, if you'll notice, there's one curly brace on the same line, and then there's a closing curly brace on the bottom line. Now, what all of this means is function declares that the next word there is going to be the name of a function. In the parentheses, that's where parameters will go. And I'll explain what parameters are, but we'll just leave it empty for now. And then those curly braces are whatever is inside that function. So let's just say inside this function, we're going to do console.log. And then, let's see, what's the best hack you've ever seen? I've seen a lot of cool hacks. I'm going to say my life, because why not? So, if I were to do the best hack ever and console.log my life, if I run this, nothing actually happens because we're not actually calling this function. Now, to call the function, we just type it out over here and call the best hack ever. And then you add those parentheses there. When you add parentheses to something, that calls the function. That says, hey, it's your turn to get in line and execute. So now that I've called the best hack ever, I can run it and it prints my life. There you go. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do with functions, and I'll get through that right now. So functions, like I said, can accept parameters. So if you notice this one, it says function say my name, and then there's the word name in those parentheses, and then it has console.log hi name. That is a variable that you can use. And so if I did say my name Beyonce, I should have typed say my name, but that's too long. It's okay. You can put that in there, and then it'll print that out. So let's just say I want to do the best hack ever, and I'm going to put a name in here. And then in the console.log statement, I'm going to put name plus, and then I'm going to do an S right here. And actually, what I'm going to do is do this little slash. You'll see what I'm talking about. Then when I hit run, oh, it's missing a slash. Pick up. I'm going to start this part over. So I'm going to erase what I typed because this thing is spazzing on me. Okay, cut. Here we are. So let's just say I go back to this best hack ever, and I'm going to add a parameter name, and then I'm going to add, let's just say, name plus, I'm going to start over again, because life happens. Okay, so if we go back to this best hack ever function, I'm going to put name as one of the parameters, and then I'm going to do the life of, and I'm going to put name right here. Now, if you'll notice, in this entire console.log statement, it's kind of like a variable where we have the quotes plus name. You can console.log as much as you want because it's just printing to the console whatever is in the parentheses. What we could have also done is done var, statement equals, and then the life of, and then name right here. And then in here we can just call statement. There's lots of options there. This is a quick and easy way. And so when I run it, it says the life of undefined. So remember when I said that variables can be undefined? That's what's happening here. Because we didn't actually pass in a name that's going to be used. So it does the life of undefined. That seems really deep, but we actually want to do the life of a person. And so what we would do, we would put in a little string here, and let's just say the life of Cassidy. And so when I hit run, it prints the life of Cassidy instead, because we're passing in the word Cassidy as a variable to that name. So the name variable equals Cassidy. When you print it out, that's what that is. It can accept multiple parameters too, and variables. And so first I'll talk about variables. Let's just say I don't know what this name will be because someone hasn't logged in or something like that. I can do var poop, because why not? Var poop equals Cassidy. Man, I shouldn't have done that. I just dug myself in a hole. That's okay. And then when I type poop right here, it still says the life of Cassidy because it takes in that variable. So that's pretty nice. But again, functions can also accept multiple parameters, and that's just a matter of adding a comma in between the parameter names inside those parentheses. So if you'll notice, I made this function add, and it does add n1 comma n2. Those are two different numbers that you'll pass in. And then I'll do var result equals n1 plus n2, and then print out the result. And so this is the beginnings of a beautiful JavaScript calculator. So if you'll notice, when we actually call the add function, it will print 24. So I'll do a quick example really quick. Let's just do function. Instead of add, we'll do subtract. We'll create this function here. And then for the two numbers, I'll do number 1 and then number 2. Notice that I have numbers in the variable names, but not at the beginning because that's bad. So then I'm going to do var subtraction equals number 1 minus number 2, semicolon at the end. If you'll notice, there's not a semicolon at the end of a function declaration or the end of a function, and that's because of those curly braces right there. And there's a lot of technical details behind that, but just trust me, you need a semicolon at the end of everything, but not when it comes to those function declarations. Then we're going to console.log subtraction. So later, when I call subtract, and then I do 50 minus 10, like that, and run it, it's going to print out 40. Whoa, you can get all your math homework done with this simple function. Maybe. Now, again, functions can also accept variables, and it doesn't have to accept variables for both parameters. So let's just say I just want to subtract 10 from something. I can do var whatever equals whatever number you want. Let's just do 500 instead. And then I can stick in whatever over here, and then hit run, and it prints out 490. So that's pretty nice when you want to mix and match how you want to set things up. There's also another thing in functions, that's the return statement. Now the return statement, let's just say you don't actually want to print anything in your functions. You want to set everything up so that way it prints later once the functions are executed. And this will happen when you have more and more in-depth functions and not just ones that are doing subtractions. The return keyword returns the value to whoever is actually calling that function, and it also exits the function. So once the return keyword is hit, nothing will execute after that. Because it's just exiting the function right there. But then it also gives the value whatever you're returning. So in this example right here, I have the add function, and takes in n1 and n2 again, it adds it together, and then instead of printing it out, it returns the result. Now in return result, notice nothing after that line will be executed, and then when I have var sum equals add 15 and 2, first of all, that's creating a variable. The variable is calling a function, and then everything that is being returned in that function is assigned to that variable. So I am returning result. Result is actually going to now be sum, because var sum equals whatever that result is, because that's what's being returned. Does that make sense? I hope so. So I'll edit this subtract function over here so I can show that to you. So instead of console.log, I'm going to do return subtraction. And so whenever I run this now, notice this little arrow right here, that means it's returning it, but it's not actually printing it. And not all consoles will be so nice to just print that for you right there. But what's happening is when I call subtract, it's not actually being attached to anything. It's just being returned into the ether. So what I can do is do var tomato. I really need to come up with better variable names. That's okay. So I can do var tomato equals subtract. Now if you'll notice, it's not being sent into the ether anymore. It's being contained in this beautiful ripe tomato. So later if I want to choose to print out tomato, I can do console.log tomato. And then when I choose to reveal whatever the results of tomato are, I hit run and it prints it out. So basically whenever you assign a function to a variable, that means that the variable gets whatever the function is returning, and it's contained in that variable until you decide to release it to anything you want. And again, let's just say you wanted to construct a string. You could do var, what am I going to call this? Noodle. So var noodle, and then I'm going to say I have, and then put in our variable tomato. I have blank noodles. And then print that out. And so I'm going to print console.log noodle. Now what's happening is we're calling the function subtract, assigning it to tomato. We're making a variable called noodle that's taking that value that we have for tomato, putting it in a string, and then printing that out. And so when we print that out, whoa, I have 490 noodles. That is a lot of noodles. You are going to be very full and tired. So there you go. You can do a lot with that return statement. And I kind of showed you this before, but you can call functions any way you want, as much as you want. And so if you'll notice in this example, I have big sum that calls add 2 and 50 plus add of 35 and 2. So that'll actually add those two functions together, the result of those two functions together. And then I have massive sum that has a big add calling add again inside of it, and it's kind of nested in there. You can call functions as many times as you want and put in functions as parameters, because if you'll notice in this massive sum right here, it's taking this big add, and inside each of those it's taking the return value of the add 52 and 2 and the add 3 and 7, and then it's assigning the return value of those being added together to massive sum. It's a lot of things being called in each other, which is kind of cool. And so I can show that to you right here, where let's just say I have subtraction again, and I want to call var massive subtract, because creativity, and I can call subtract of multiple things. So I'm going to call subtract of subtract, and then I'm going to do 10 and 5, and then subtract of 15 and 10. So we're taking subtract of 10 and 5, which is 5, and subtract of 15 and 10, which is also 5, and then those are the two values that are coming out of those two return values. Then I'm subtracting those two values from each other. So when I actually print massive subtract, console.log massive subtract, that should print 5 minus 5, which is 0, because it's taking the return values of those two, subtracting them from each other. Whoa, it printed 0, it worked, yay! So yeah, you could even call subtract again and again and again and call it multiple times. That's what we call recursion, and we're not going to get too much into that. But you can continue calling functions as much as you want. I could create an add function and also call it in this subtract function. I could create a function inside the subtract function and continue making it go deeper and deeper and have functions in functions. There's all kinds of options for you to just like make all kinds of different equations and things to put together. Now I'm going to talk to you about conditionals. Now conditionals are conditions. So it's something that you want to happen only if something is true. And so right here, I stuck a bunch of comments in there, but basically it's if some Boolean, whatever is in this parentheses, if this Boolean is true, then it'll execute whatever is in those curly braces. Otherwise, you're going to do something else instead. You don't have to actually include an else statement. If you don't want to, you could just have if something happens, do this, otherwise don't. But you can totally do that.